We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Hey Amid Beis Meseches Menachos. This is Menachos Daf 35b. On the previous Talmud, the Gemara was discussing how to tell the difference between new tefillin and old tefillin, and the Gemara now continues with another way to tell the difference: v'inami, or kol hechi dechi misli bei b'misna asya abasrei. Any time where if it's hanging by the strap, it follows it. Chadata, then it's new. V'idach, and otherwise atikta, it is old. Rashi explains inami, or kol hechi de misli b'misna, means as follows: kisha oches adam b'ritzua hatluya bohen. When a person is holding the ritzua, the strap, v'yasu tefillin abasrei, and the tefillin follow ve'enon nitak, and they're not going to snap. So chadata, that's new, that's strong. V'idach sheniskin atika, but if it's going to snap, so then it's old. Lishna achrin, another way of understanding this: asya abasrei shemispashe ta'or. It means if the leather is able to stretch, so then have a chadata, then it is new. And the Gemara continues, Abaya have a Yosef Kami de Rav Yosef. Abaya was sitting before Rav Yosef, Ifsik le ritzua de tefillin, and the strap of his tefillin, it broke. Amar le said to him, Ma'ulam miktore, what's the halacha? Can I tie it together? Amar le said to him, Ukshartem ksiv, it's written in the pasuk Ukshartem, and we learn from there, Shetahei kashira tama. We read the pasuk as kesher tam, that it should be like a perfect tying, and therefore if one were to knot together the two parts of the ritzua that had broken apart, that would not be a kashira tama, and it would not be kosher. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Ravacha, breder Rav Yosef le Ravashi. Ravacha, the son of Rav Yosef, said to Ravashi, Mahu lemitfare va'ayle letfir lagav. What about stitching it together and then have the stitch kind of hidden on the inside? Is that okay? Amar, he said, Pok chazi my amadavar. Go see what the people do. Nobody does that, and therefore stitching the ritzuos together will not be effective either. And the Gemara continues, Amar Papa says, Gardume ritzuos, that means the stubs of the ritzuos. What it means is, let's say the tefillin shel rosh, so they're fastened to the head, and there's a knot there that helps to fasten it over on the head, and then the straps hang down. If those straps, if they break, so there's just a small amount of strap, a stub, kesheros, then it's kosher. If it breaks, it's fine. Essentially, there is no minimum required shear once the person has been able to put it around his head. But the Gemara says, V'lav milsi, but that's not true. Mida amri b'nei Rav Yechia, from the fact that the sons of Rav Chia said that gardume tchelas, that the stubs of tchelas, that means to say the tchelas of the tzitzis, let's say that breaks and there's just a stub left after the knots, or v'gardume ezov, or let's say the stub of a hyssop, there also we're talking about the hyssop that it breaks, specifically talking about the hyssop that is used by the purification of mitzora, kesherin, so those are kosher, and so we understand hasam over there, hasam hu de tashmishe mitzvah, and there those are things that are used for mitzvah, and there we say that the minimum shear is not a requirement, that stubs are okay. Avalacha, but over here, the tashmishe kedusha, in it, where it's something that is used for kedusha, for holiness, lo, then no, we would not be so lenient. The Gemara continues, Mechlal, now all of this implies the islu shiura, that there is a minimum shear for the straps for the tefillin shel rosh. V'kama shiurayu, now how much is that minimum shear? Amar Rami Bar Chama says, Amar Reish Lakish, that Reish Lakish says, ad etzbat tzreida, it's until the etzbat tzreida, which is the finger, and we'll see what that means in a moment. Rav Kahana machvi kafaf, Rav Kahana showed that as a curved measure. We'll see Rashi in a moment, but the idea is it's the measure from the index finger to the middle finger. And Ravachi machvi pashat, Ravachi, he showed it spread out. According to Ravashi, we go until the thumb. We're measuring from the index finger until the thumb. And the Gemara continues, Rabba kater lahu upashit v'shadi lahu. Now Rabba, when he tied the tefillin shel rosh, so he would spread it out and throw it essentially behind him. That's where the straps would hang, behind his body, on his back. Ravacha bar Yaakov kater lahu umatzlis lahu. Ravacha bar Yaakov, when he would bind the tefillin to his head, and then he would braid those remaining straps. And Mar Berei de Ravna Ovid Kedidon, and Mar Berei de Ravna, he did like we do, meaning he had the straps in the front. And Rashi explains, Kshira Tam, it has to be a whole, a perfect tying. Shetehak Kshira Noah, the point here is that it should be beautiful. V'myesh Kesher Acher Bertzua Levad Mi Kesher Shakoshen Barosh. If there's another knot in the strap, besides the knot that's used when it's fastened around the head, Sulo Havik Kshira Yafa, that's not called a nice tie. Lashon Acher, another way of understanding Kshira Tama, means Ritzua Shlema, it has to be a whole strap. V'lo Kshura, it shouldn't be knotted together. V'ayle L'tfira Lagav, and so then the Gemara said, what about if it would be stitched together and the stitching would be on the inside? Shalo Yeroah, the point is that it wouldn't be visible. V'yehei Kashlema, it would look like it's whole. And so he said, My Amadover, go and see what people do. V'chevan de Noag and Cain, since that's not the custom, lo sasa, that you shouldn't do. Gardume ritzuos, and then the Gemara discussed gardume ritzuos, which are the stubs of the ritzuos. Mashatola minho ritzuos la'achar sheniskashru barosh. This is talking about after the tefillin shel rosh are placed on the head, whatever is remaining after the knot, im nifsak meos and shiraim, if that breaks, vinishtayru gardumin, and all that remains is gardumin, which are the stubs, kisherin, then it's kosher. And Rashi over here is learning this Gemara as talking about the tefillin shel rosh. There are those who learn the Gemara in different fashions. Gardumin hainu shirayim. Again, gardumin is the remnant or the stub of that ritzua. Shir tchelas mefarish beperak hatchelas. In terms of how large the tchelas of tzitzis is supposed to be, that's explained later on in perak hatchelas. V'shir ezov. In terms of the shir of the ezov, the hyssop, mefarish beperak hamed sukkah. That's explained in the first perak of sukkah. And Rashi continues gardumim shirei. And again, gardumim, that refers to the stubs, whatever is left. Again, by the tchelas or the ezov, and mechlal the islu shira, that implies that there is a shir l'tzlias haritzuas, for how much has to hang from the straps, levar hakesher, outside of the knot, midemoni lu shiraim legardumin, because again, from the fact that we mentioned these halachas by the tchelas and the ezov, that there we are lenient, it sounds like we would be strict by the ritzuos. And then the Gemara said, machvi kafaf, again, in terms of what is that minimum shear. So Rav Kahana, he showed the shear of the etzba tzreida, which is the index finger, he showed kafuf. Rashi explains, orach haratzua teo defes ala kesher, the strap should be long beyond the knot, kamash yachol lifshot me etzba adama, that's from the index finger until the middle finger. And then we had a pashat, the Gemara said that the Rav Kahana showed kafuf, but Rav Ashi, he showed pashat, which literally means stretched out, kamash yachol lifshot me godel v'ad etzba, that's from the thumb until the index finger, to legabe etzba v'godel have a bepshita, because then you stretch out your hand, or legabe ama v'etzba b'chfifa, when it comes to the middle finger and the index finger, it's more curved. There's much more distance that one can stretch from the index finger to the thumb than the index finger to the middle finger. And Rashi continues, Rabba k'sheminiach tefillin, Rabba, when he put on the tefillin, kosher le bereshe, he tied it to his head, u'shiore haritzuos poshet v'shadilu v'tolen al kseifa me'achorav. Again, Rabba, the straps would hang behind him, by his back. And Rashi continues that Rav Acha bar Yaakov umaslis lehu l'ritzuos hatzlios hayagodlan, he would essentially braid them. And then finally, the last opinion was Mar Berei de Ravna, he did kididon like we do, keminag shalanu, like our minag, v'tolan lefanov, that again he would have the ritzuos in front of him. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yehuda Berei Rav Shmuel bar Shilas Mishmei de Rav. Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, said in the name of Rav, Kesher shel tefillin, the knot of the tefillin, halacha l'Moshe miSinai. That is a halacha l'Moshe miSinai. And Rashi explains, Kesher shel tefillin, sheyosem haritzuos al rosho bo'inon shehei dalid, when the ritzuos are placed on his head, so there the knot has to be in the shape of a dalid, kedei sheyehei shakai nira alein, that way it can read shakai, the shin nira bekomat beis chitzona shekafal aklaf ke'in shin. Again, the shin one sees, that's at the outside of the bias, v'dalid nira bekesher, and then there's a dalid in the knot, v'yud nira ba'oso shel yad kemin ritzua katana, v'rosha kafaf ma'at kemin yud, and then in the knot of the tefillin shel yad, that's where there is a yud, and so therefore you have shakai, you have the shin and the dalid and the yud, and so therefore again that entire halacha of kesher shel tefillin is a halacha l'Moshe miSinai. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, V'noyehen levar, their beauty should be towards the outside. Rashi explains, V'noyehen levar, Hashem yehei nira mibachutz, that Shem Hashem should be visible from the outside. And Rashi continues, Lashon Acher, another explanation, Noyein shel ritzuos shein chalukos mitzad echad utzvuos shechoros v'hu noyein, the area where they are black, that's where the beauty is, that should be pointed towards the outside. V'raya l'davar, and a proof to this, midamrina nisaficha le ritzua de tefillin, because it says over there that the tefillin were flipped. The Gemara is going to say that the tefillin were flipped upside down. Amar le v'lo savar lamar v'noyein levar, so he responds and says to him, doesn't the master hold that it has to be the beauty to the outside? That's also what we said earlier. On the inside, what's the Gnai and Davar Acher? The Gemara said on the previous Amud, Zimnin de Mishafchin, sometimes it flips over. Al Maki Agavna have a Mishafchin. You see that the word Mishafchin, which the Gemara is about to use, is Shenepach Tzad HaRetzua HaTachton Lamala. That's when the bottom of the Retzua flips upside down, Vinira, and then it appears. And so again, that's what it means, V'noyein Levar, according to the second explanation. The idea is that the black part of the Retzua should be facing the outside. outside. And the Gemara now continues with what Rashi just referenced. Rav Ashi have a Yosef Kami de Marzutra. Rav Ashi was sitting before Marzutra. Is hafcholei ritzua de tefillin, and the ritzua of the tefillin had flipped upside down so that the black part was towards the skin and the other part was towards the outside. The inside was towards the outside. Amar Lei said to him, Lo savar lamar, v'no yein lavar. Doesn't the master hold that the beauty should be to the outside? Amar Lei said to him, Lavad atoy, I didn't realize that it flipped. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says, V'ro kol amei ha'aretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha v'yaru mimeka, all of the nations will see the shem Hashem upon you. Tanya Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol Omer, we learned in a brayso, Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol says, Elu tefillin shabarosh, this refers to the tefillin that are on the head. That's what the amei ha'aretz see. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says, V'hasirosi es kapi v'ro isa es achora, you will see my back, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe Rabbeinu. Amar Rav Chana bar Bizna, Amar Rav Shimon Chasida. Rav Chana bar Bizna said that Rav Shimon Chasida said, Malami, this teaches Shehera lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe kesher shel tefillin, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed Moshe the knot of the tefillin. That's what the pasuk is referring to. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, Kesher shel tefillin sarach shi'ei lamala. The knot of the tefillin needs to be above. We'll see Rashi in a moment, but it means on the head and not the neck. Kadei shu Yisrael lamala v'lo lamata. That way, Klal Yisrael, it indicates that they should be lamala above and not below. And the Gemara continues, V'tzarach she'yehei klape pnim. It has to be facing the face, meaning to say that it shouldn't be off to the sides. We'll see Rashi in a moment on that as well. Kadei shu Yisrael lifnim v'lo la'achar. That indicates that Klal Yisrael should be in front and not in back. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Bidri Amar Rav. Rav Shmuel bar Bidri says that Rav says, V'amri lo, and some have the version Amar Ravacha Aricha Amar Rav Huna, that Ravacha the tall said, that Rav Huna said. V'amri lo, and some have the version Amar Rav Menashe Amar Shmuel, that Rav Menashe said, that Shmuel said, Tefillin me'ein masai mevarach alein, with regards to tefillin, when is the bracha made? Mishas hanachasim, from the time that they are put on. The Gemara asks, Ini, is that really true? V'ha'amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, but Rav Yehuda said that Shmuel said, Kol ha-mitzvahs kulan mevarach alein, over lasiyasim, when it comes to mitzvahs, the bracha has to be made over lasiyasim, before the mitzvah is done. So how is one making the bracha after the tefillin are placed on? And the Gemara continues, Abaye v'Rava da'amri tarvayu, Abaye and Rava, they both say, Mishas hanocha v'yad shas kashira. What it means is, from the time it's placed until the time that it's made tight, that it's tied, so that's the time that the bracha is made. And Rashi explains, his tefillin were turned around, that the dalid was not recognizable. The commentators note that this Rashi seems to be going like the first explanation of Rashi, V'no yein lavar. According to the second explanation of V'no yein lavar, isafi would simply mean that the strap was turned upside down so that the black part was not facing the outside. And Rashi continues, Lavad atoy, I didn't realize, Shogeg ha'yisi, was a mistake. Shem Hashem nikra alecha elu tefillin shabarosh, shekasav bo rov Hashem. The tefillin shabarosh have most of the Shem Hashem. They have the shin v'dalid, they have the shin and the dalid. That's why that's Shem Hashem nikra alecha. And Rashi continues, Kesher shel tefillin, the knot of the tefillin me'achorei ha'oref, which is by the back, by the neck area of HaKadosh Baruch Hu me'niach tefillin. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does wear tefillin. Kedamar le'el, like we say earlier, the mishum tefillin shel rosh, that because of the tefillin shel rosh, yiru hovdei kochavim, that's why the hovdei kochavim are afraid. Kedechsiv v'yaru mimeka, like it's written in the pasuk v'yaru mimeka. And so again, that's what the pasuk is talking about. V'ro isa es achorai. It's talking about the kesher of the tefillin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then the Gemara said, lemala, the knot should be above begova harosh, higher on the head. V'lo lamata bitzaver, not below by the neck. And klape panim means mimul oref v'lo bitzidei harosh. The first explanation Rashi says is it should be exactly kind of lined up on the back of the head and not by the sides. Lishnachrina klape panim. Another explanation of klape panim is sheyeh hakesher mi bifnim. The tie should be from the inside. V'hanoi shel dalid mi bachutz, and the beauty of the dalid should be facing outside. Kedamran v'noyein levar. That would be along the lines of what we said, v'noyein levar. And Rashi continues, Bidri is shame, that's just a name. Me'emasai mevarech alein mishas hanachosin. When is the bracha made? It's from when it is placed. Mashma la'achar she'nichan. That sounds like after the tefillin are placed, after one puts on the tefillin, he makes the bracha. And Abaye v'Rava damri tarvayu, Abaye and Rava, they both say, Mai mishas hanachosin. What does it mean, mishas hanachosin? To kamar, mishas hanocha v'yad shas kashira. What it means is, from the time of the placement until it's tied, the kevan da'adayin lo koshan, since he hasn't yet tied the tefillin, he hasn't yet bound the tefillin upon himself, over lasiyason, who that's still called over lasiyason before the mitzvah. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph.